So a Toronto Blue Jays off day yesterday means no game to break down, but that gives us a great opportunity to take a look at the Blue Jays prospects. Are you okay with them moving on from some of these guys? We're going to get into all of it today on Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. When we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. As always, I'm Brayden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5 Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well, on our main one, at Locked On Jays. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok, at Locked On Blue Jays. And we keep talking about it. You guys have been killing the subscribe button lately. Keep that going. If you're new or you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. You get your shorts, your live streams, your videos, your podcasts, the whole ordeal. And if you're listening anywhere else, we do appreciate all of that, too. But, Carter, it is an off day. I think this is a time where, hey, maybe we don't have to do a 4-hour episode here. But we got some big stuff that we want to talk about today. And
cue the 4-hour episode.
What's that?
You said we got some big stuff to talk about, so cue the 4-hour episode. We're probably going long in this one, too, let's be honest.
Exactly. Nothing new here on Locked On Blue Jays. But we got trade deadline is fast approaching. The Toronto Blue Jays are in the heat of things. The bullpen is in trouble. We're going to talk prospects. Who are the Blue Jays okay with giving up in a big trade piece? How badly is this bullpen hurting right now? And do we have anybody in the pipeline that we could possibly bring up as of right now? Or are we going to have to rely completely on trades? And also, of course, with the final series before the All-Star break coming up, it's the Blue Jays, it's the Athletics. We'll tee that up for you coming up throughout the show. But Carter, right now, my man, how pumped are you just to be talking trades right now that go in the Blue Jays' favor?
Yeah, the Toronto Blue Jays will get better at the trade deadline. How much better we're going to have to see. But we're not talking about scalping the entire Toronto Blue Jays roster. We're talking about other teams that we might be able to scalp players from. So it's definitely an exciting time to be a Toronto Blue Jays fan. I guess off the top, we'll start with it. We'll spend a lot of time on this. I think it's fairly obvious what the Toronto Blue Jays needs are. So I'm just going to quickly go over mine, kind of in, I guess, order of like what I want the most, going down to the least. Number one, if there's only making one move this trade deadline, it has to be a starting pitcher, and not just any starting pitcher. It has to be an ace. It has to be that top of the rotation guy. If I had only one choice, someone like a Dylan Cease, someone like maybe that Zach Gallen. I'm not sure if that's exactly the number one ace you're looking for, but that would be the caliber guy when Zach Gallen's normally playing up to his caliber. Would be the type of trade that I'm looking for, maybe a Jacob deGrom as well. Throw it back over to you just quickly. Like, is that like kind of your thought process as well?
Yeah, it has to be. You got to have a guy that can go out there game one of any series and absolutely lock it down. And right now, I don't know if I have 100%. I love this pitching staff because they by a committee approach can get the job done. But you need a guy that can go out there and be a for sure every single time and a shutdown guy for sure. So, yeah, I think that's number one. I mean, there are a lot of options with this bullpen under a little bit of fire right now. I could very well see them making a bullpen move. And for a bat, I think instead of going for, and actually I saw Keegan Matheson sort of say the same thing, instead of maybe necessarily going for a huge power bat and having to pay a whole ordeal, maybe they just go for a specific guy, somebody that's really good against righties, somebody that's really good against lefties to add to this bench or to this depth of this team. And depth maybe is the wrong word. But a guy that can be a little bit more of a platoon as well. This Blue Jays team is built like that. It's built to be able to have a ton of these platoon guys that you could play in certain situations. So I could see that being a very big possibility as well, Carter. But, we're going to talk a ton of trades. The big board does come out next week. The Toronto Blue Jays, or the Locked On Blue Jays big board, which we're calling it. It will have all the guys that me and Carter and Skylar Peters and Dallin Wilton and John Jay and Tristan Baranowski have all put our brains together and said, hey, these are the guys that we want the Toronto Blue Jays to go after. Now, necessarily, are they always going to be the most realistic? We're going to try to make them realistic. But at the end of the day, there are guys that are on our watch list. That is a possibility or we think could happen. So that's going to come out next week. But Carter, in saying all of that, this episode specifically is talking about, are we okay with giving up some of our top prospects? I'll say right now, Arjun Namala is number 50 in all of the MLB top 100 prospects list. Trey Savage is number 57 in all of the top 100. So that's two guys, and only two guys the Toronto Blue Jays have in the top 100, Carter. And I guess I'll start there. We know that these two guys specifically, and we can talk about some of the other ones as well, but these two guys in particular have been outstanding this season for their respective clubs. We know that the Toronto Blue Jays don't have the best farm system, and I'll throw that over to you so you can sort of place it amongst the other team to show the people where this Toronto Blue Jays team sits in regards to their farm system.
Yeah, so just before the season started, I'll give you a couple of numbers here. Before the season started, I looked at MLB.com. I also looked at Bleacher Report. They had MLB.com, I think, had him at 27, and then Bleacher Report had him at 28. That's out of 30 teams. That is not very good. But as we got down the line, this is as recent as June 2nd. I do have an article here that has rated all of the team's top 10 prospects, not their entire prospect pool, just the 10 best guys, but it has ranked all 30 teams' top 10 prospects in order. So it's really the top 10 prospects are the guys that you are going to be trading at the trade deadline if you are a buyer. Nobody really cares about, a 16th rated prospect. If you're on the other side, you're getting anyone at the MLB level that is talented. So we are focused here on the top 10 prospects. And they have the Toronto Blue Jays there at 24 on that list. So got up the rankings slightly. But when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays prospect rankings, you got some top-end talent, and there's no doubt about that, but it falls off immensely, and it falls off very quickly. So if you're going to make a move with Arjun Namala, going to make a move with Trey Savage, that's kind of why I led off this segment with the number one need on this team is an ace, and that is really the only place where I would be comfortable giving away Arjun Namala or Trey Savage. I think you have to go out and get that number one in a starting rotation, even for a high leverage bullpen arm, unless it's Emmanuel Clase. Like, they got to go really top the line here to give up one of those two guys. I think if you're really going to go all in and you are going to give up Trey Savage or Arjun Namala, I don't think there's really a scenario that you give up both. I think that would be a huge blunder from this Toronto Blue Jays front office. I do definitely think you can package like an Arjun Namala with definitely a couple of other top tier prospects, like maybe an Elvis Martinez. Maybe if you want to take a shot at Ricky Tiedemann, there's a couple other guys that I would throw in there as well. But that's the only scenario where I'd be okay with giving, one of them up, not probably both, unless there's some random Ross Atkins wizardry that he's cooking up that none of us ever could have expected. But for the guys that are available, I don't think there would be a reason to give up both of them the same deal.
So, Carter, a couple things I want to touch on just coming out of that. And I agree with you. I think if you give up both of them, I think, again, you're setting back this pipeline for the Toronto Blue Jays heavily. And this is something that the Toronto Blue Jays have struggled with since bringing up what originally was going to be the big three. And that was Biggio, Bichette, and Guerrero. I mean, we can call them the big two now, I guess. But they've struggled. And if you do that, you better make sure you're doing an absolute dent in at the trade deadline. Now, I want to go back to something that Joe Siddall said on the just after one of the games. He says, "I don't just want a starting pitcher. I want the highest end starting pitcher you can get. The way the American League is this year is this not the year to be absolutely all in and go for something. The Blue Jays can beat anybody." So in my head, I could see a lot of people wanting to take these huge, massive shots on guys. And I think the one thing I'm a little bit worried about is taking a shot and missing, or taking a shot and maybe it's not enough, or maybe this isn't the year. And I guess you can't think of that right now. I think you have to say, hey, if we're going to go, then we're going to go. But what does that necessarily entail? Does that entail you selling off both of these guys? Does it entail you selling off what I would say is two of our three big pieces? I think you can still say that Elvis Martinez is part of your big three right now in the pipeline, which I can definitely see. I think that is more so the way to go. I think you're okay with giving up two of those guys. I just don't think it can be 1 and 2. I think it could be 1 and 3 or 2 and 3. You're playing with fire if you're going to sell out the entire farm.
You use the term big two, and that's exactly how this prospect system is as well. It's Arjun Namala, the power hitting shortstop, very young still as well. So that's why the projectability is just off the charts with Arjun Namala. That is by far, I would say, the number one prospect, even with how good Trey Savage is. Trey Savage, more of the MLB kind of ready guy. Obviously not going to be ready this year. May be ready next year with how quickly he's progressing. Didn't necessarily expect that from Trey Savage, but it's really 1 and 2. And then Elvis Martinez does still have projectability coming off of not just a down year right now in front of our eyes. Ricky Tiedemann injury, Jake Bloss injury. Maybe there's a little bit more mix and matching if these guys are healthy. But at this time right now, it's 1 and 2, and there is a steep drop off. And I think that is one of the reasons why this Toronto Blue Jays prospect system isn't necessarily rated that high. But if you're going to be moving on from one of these guys, you're not taking a shot on a 1-year guy. Not a lot of big names that are on 1-year deals anyway, like if you're going after, other than Dylan Cease, I guess. But if you're going to go after guys like Jacob deGrom is a guy with some control. I'm not going to go too far into depth here, but Freddie Peralta is another guy that has been on the market. Joe Ryan, another guy. You can really look at any of the Rangers starters. I guess there's Tyler Mahle, who probably don't love giving up Arjun Namala or Trey Savage for, but if you can get Eovaldi, I'm 100%, maybe even both for that one, because Eovaldi is that dude, has had that experience in the playoffs. That is a proven guy. If you can get that top tier starting pitcher, like that is an ace, maybe a top 15, top 10 pitcher in all of baseball when he's on. So if you're going to go and not make that big of a splash, which I think is very unlikely, that would be really the only scenario where I'm okay with it. But staying realistic here, I don't think there is a trade with the guys that are going to be made available. That there is a scenario where Ross Atkins does give up both of these guys. So I agree, it does set back the farm, and it's just a big risk that you're taking. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at what's in front of you, Toronto Blue Jays team is one of the better teams that we have seen in a very long time. And you look around the American League, there isn't too much competition. Not saying it's going to be a cakewalk to the World Series, but definitely easier than past years.
And Carter, I do want to get into the stats of our what quote unquote big three is, but I'll say big two right now. In the next segment to start it off, I just wanted to throw this out there. Ross Atkins has been very good at getting deals done in regards to when they are buyers. Ross Atkins has done a fantastic job at that. So you got to give him the hat tips there. So now will he be able to do it again? I'll be interested to see. And we could do all the predictions, and we want you guys can shoot us all your predictions and what you think is going to happen, who you'd want to see on this team. But at the end of the day, it's the trade deadline. You never really know until the deal's done because, we don't know about some of the other teams' pieces that maybe the Blue Jays have a really keen eye, or that, who other teams have a really keen eye on for the Blue Jays. And we don't know who the Blue Jays necessarily are specifically targeting. So they are assumptions. They are guesses based on, some of the stuff that we see around and guys that are doing well and where this team has needs. So again, send us a bunch of stuff. If whatever you guys have an idea of, if you have one specific guy you'd really want to go for, and if we agree with you, we'll throw him on the trade, the big board for the trade deadline coming up for next week. Make sure you guys send us all that in the comment section down below. We'll want to hear from you guys. We want your guys' opinions because me and Carter, we talk a bunch. We have very similar ideas after talking this much about one single team on a podcast every day. So it's always great getting your guys' opinions. Now, we will come back. I do want to talk about just how these guys have been this season. And then also we have to talk about the bullpen, Carter, because it is in some shambles. I don't want to say shambles, but they got some problems going on right now. So we got to talk about all that coming up, plus the series preview right after this short break.
Today's episode is sponsored by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trade, supplyhouse.com. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the most reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off when you first order. That is SH5 for 5% off when you first order, and that is at supplyhouse.com.
So, Carter, just continuing on here as we were talking about these guys, I did want to get into some of the numbers regarding these. I want to say 3 players because I will keep Orelvis Martinez in here because he was a guy that was highly rated for the Toronto Blue Jays. And, after coming off of the suspension, coming back into this season, people didn't really know what he was going to be after that. So I'm going to break down numbers on him first. He's batting in AAA a 192 with an on-base percentage of 282, a slugging of 376, and an OPS of 658. He has 11 home runs this season in 73 games played. So not really numbers you're wanting to see from Elvis Martinez, especially, after coming off of the suspension. You sort of wanted him to get back to business, but that really isn't how it's been going for him.
Yeah, it's just a massive setback when you're a very young baseball player who was having a very good year, would have had a taste at the major league level. Now you're at a place where Elvis Martinez has no way to get into this roster in 2025. Absolutely no shot. This guy plays in the MLB unless it goes on a magical run, which I don't think a lot of people are expecting from Martinez at this point. You have some other guys that are kind of doing what he would do at the major league level as well, and you would not be able to promise him regular playing time, so just not the time to start the clock on a guy like Elvis Martinez. And then just continuing when you go down the line in this prospect list, like Jake Bloss, Ricky Tiedemann, there's Josh Kasevich, there's Johnny King, who looks really good, but a young baseball player. Cal Steven, another guy that you've probably heard a lot about, whether it's on the broadcast, whether it's from us, another guy in this most previous draft that you have drafted with some upside. So there is some stuff of more recency bias to be excited for. But I kind of wanted to expand this a little bit farther than just the prospects, because a lot of times when we're at the trade deadline, not as much, I guess, at the trade deadline, but even big blockbuster trades, with hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays will end up doing here. It's not just prospects that you're trading a lot of the time. It is that major league talent, and it's not going to be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's not going to be Bichette. That's not the guys who I'm talking about. Maybe it's a guy like Joey Loperfido. Maybe it's a guy like David Schneider who's heated up a little bit. Maybe it's a guy like Barger who's thrown around in these talks. I kind of want to hear your opinion on that. That's why I threw him specifically in there. But there's a bunch of guys that you can go over. There's like the Nathan Lucas. There's maybe even Andres Gimenez if somebody wants to eat that contract. There's Will Wagner. There's a bunch of players that are these fringe MLB talents that other teams might want, especially if they are going to trade some of their bigger, more talented players that are taking up roster spots. They want that plug and play guy that does have a little bit of upside, that can get his feet wet in the major leagues. But for you, is there anyone that's fairly young? Obviously, don't include Varsho, don't include Santander, don't include the core pieces. I'm throwing Barger into this discussion as well. Is there anyone for you that's completely off limits, that if there was a massive blockbuster, no matter who you're getting, that no other team can touch on this baseball team?
Right now, it's Addison Barger. And he absolutely, because Carter, you said it last episode or 2 episodes ago now that he might end up leading in home runs on this baseball team. Addison Barger brings a lot of dynamic ability to this team. He can play in the field. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm. If you play him at third, he's pretty solid there, honestly. Even his defense has improved greatly. And this guy is just somebody that has found himself. And I don't think you trade a guy like this season, especially when you're trying to go on a playoff run. This is a guy that you can utilize up and down your lineup. A guy like David Schneider, I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't traded. I just don't necessarily know what the value is in him right now, even though he has been better for this Blue Jays team. I just don't think it's really there. Maybe if a team wants to take a shot on him, fair enough. He's still a younger guy. Ernie Clement is an interesting one for me. I don't think they should trade him, and I don't think they will, but I could see there being teams interested in a sort of utility player that gets on base and smashes lefties. I just think the Jays don't give him up. I think he's too valuable in a lot of different situations, especially if there's an injury, if there's something else. I think Ernie Clement's a little bit too valuable in that sense, where I think, because of his usability, I think they wouldn't do that. But I think there might be some ass about Ernie Clement. I could see Joey Loperfido for sure. I think he could definitely be a part of something, and possibly Will Wagner as well. But I think Addison Barger, David Schneider, Ernie Clement, I think are 3 guys that don't get moved. I think that there will be asked about Barger and there will be asked about Clement.
I threw Barger into this one because I'll go over a trade that I saw the other day that kind of made me want to throw up a little bit. I don't think I'm overreacting here whatsoever. You guys can let me know. It was Addison Barger, Trey Savage, and Ricky Tiedemann for Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta is a great player. Don't get me wrong, but that is a ton to give up for no matter who it is, especially when Addison Barger will probably be an instrumental piece if you want to make a deep playoff run. Doesn't make sense to make your offense worse just to make your pitching better. But you talk about Ernie Clement being traded. I don't think that's a possibility whatsoever, just because we look at one thing, Ernie Clement's age. doesn't really make a lot of sense. Just looking at teams that would be selling in this market. You got teams like the White Sox, the Marlins, the Pirates. Why would they really want a 29-year-old that is having a career year to kind of just be thrown into their plans? Doesn't really make a lot of sense for just their trajectory, and also for the Toronto Blue Jays. You got a guy that is a reliable starter. Doesn't really make sense to move off him. But you got guys like John Teclaste, Alan Roden. Like, we do have a very clogged, like, middle infield / outfield. So I think it would be beneficial for the Toronto Blue Jays if they can include one of these guys. I don't really care, honestly, who it is, as long as it's really not Addison Barger. Like, if it's John Teclaste, Alan Roden, I don't think David Schneider gets moved. I think you're right. Will Wagner, Joey Loperfido. Like, if it's any of these guys, I know we just got some of these guys at the last trade deadline. Don't care. Like, flip them, whoever. If you can get a guy that's going to be a massive addition to your team, and a guy that can be the difference between, maybe just kind of flirting with a playoff spot or going on that deep playoff run, I think it's no question that you move on from one of these guys. I don't think it's going to happen either, and I don't think it would make sense for you whatsoever, but I think I'm just kind of exposing myself as an Andres Gimenez hater. I know he's injured right now. I know he hasn't been playing, but when we're doing these trade talks, you can move on somehow from this contract. Again, no selling teams going to take on this contract. But I think somehow if you can kind of make this work, especially if you want to go for that bigger fish, Jacob deGrom is who I'm talking about, a guy who has a massive contract coming in. I think you would have to unload some of that cap. Maybe Andres Gimenez is one of those guys that you can have a little bit of that capped up with.
Yeah, I agree. I just can't see it happening. And I want to go back to the Ernie Clement point, Carter. And the only reason I say that is because I've seen weirder things happen and teams wanting a guy that's a stable bat in the lineup and can play a lot of positions. And I think that, weirdly enough, that it would be one of those weird MLB trades. But I just, for some reason, I can picture Ernie Clement being asked about. Again, I don't think the Blue Jays would give him up anyway, unless it is for this massive package. But again, I digress. And Carter, I wanted to get into just some stats on the other two prospects as well, because I said I was going to do that and sort of didn't. So I'll give a little bit of update. This is for Arjun Nimmala. He's playing in high A right now, 74 games played. He's batting .240 with a .324 on base, a .420 slugging, and a .744 OPS. He has 11 home runs and 36 RBIs, 6 stolen bags. Arjun Nimmala has been very good this year, and he's been catching a lot of people's eyes. There are going to be teams that ask about him. It will happen. I'll just be very interested to see if teams, if the Blue Jays want to move on from him. And I think my favorite of the three, and that's why I left this till last, is Trey Savage, a guy that everybody's been hearing things nonstop about. We've been talking about Trey Savage because he is an absolute beast. He's played in A and high A this season. In single A, he's got a 2.43 ERA. In high A, a 1.53 ERA, which is just insane. This guy is carving people. And I want to go over his strikeouts and stuff per nines here. So his strikeouts per nine in high A is 17.1. That is a disgusting number. This kid is unbelievable. Well, his walks per nine are 5.7 per nine, so it's getting a little bit up there with the walks. His home runs per nine are at 1, and his hits per nine are at 2.6. 2.6 hits per nine is incredible. This guy, teams will 100% be asking for. I think it'll be coming quick to a time where Trey Savage is the Blue Jays' top prospect. And I think that's how he's sort of being viewed. He's a couple years out, but I think he is absolutely a stud.
You think he's going to be better than Arjun? Arjun's younger than Trey. Trey's 21. I believe Arjun is 19. So Arjun should be on that prospect ranking the entire time Trey Savage is. I'm not going to go that big into Trey Savage. I am going to throw, not a shade, I'm not going to say, but discount him a little bit. This is a 21-year-old going into the Florida Complex League. If he doesn't have success here as a senior in college, I think that kind of has a cause for a lot of red flags. I think AA is really where I'm going to see Trey Savage get tested here. Again, you want your prospects to do very good. I'm not going to discount that whatsoever. This doesn't happen. He's not in AA if he doesn't have the success that he was having. But I don't think that's like this huge, oh my God, this guy is the greatest pitcher to ever grace the earth, when he was going against a bunch of, 18, 19-year-olds anyway in the Complex League.
And I'm gonna argue back with you a little bit here. So in regards to the two of them, the only reason that I am more high on Trey Savage than I am on Arjun Nimmala is because we see a lot of hitters succeed right up until AAA, and you think, oh my goodness, these guys are absolutely smoking the baseball, and then they just can't make the jump to the MLB level. And in my head, when you look at Trey Savage's stuff, just the movement on his pitches, the location, the tunneling, I've been seeing a bunch of videos of him lately, actually, just because I'm guessing the trade talk is spiraling. This is a guy that I can see a clearer path forward here, where for me, it's more of a gamble with a hitter, because they can struggle at the MLB level when they start to face pitchers with better stuff, with more control, with better pitch tunneling and sequencing, where pitchers can still have some success. And I'm not saying either of these guys are going to be Cy Young winners or MVPs or anything like that. And I don't want to blow this out of proportion at all. So I'm just saying that in my head, I have Trey Savage higher, but they're right neck and neck right now. And I think that's a fair assessment.
See, for me, I'll take kind of like part of what you said, but for me, I think Trey Savage just looks like he has a better trajectory because he's more polished, because he's older and he has more experience under his belt. So I think there is more of a risk with Arjun Amala just because there is more of that age gap. You drafted Arjun Amala when he was 18 in high school, but you got Trey Savage after he had an entire college career. You kind of know a little bit more with certainty what Trey Savage should be rather than Arjun Amala, but that's why the projectability is there with Arjun Amala. Kind of the same idea, I guess you could say, with Aston Barger. You got a lot of the raw talent that is there. You just kind of have to put it all together. But it is going to be interesting to see what the Toronto Blue Jays do at this trade deadline. Hopefully making not just one, but a couple of big splashes. I guess quickly, I was going to do this off the top, but just quickly, we've kind of gone over it a few times before. It's the ace. If you don't get an ace, it's that depth piece in the starting rotation. High leverage guy, almost for sure. I think that is a must for the Toronto Blue Jays team. Just a guy that can get swing and miss, whether it's a lefty or righty. Maybe one more bullpen arm. You should be okay once guys continue to get healthier. And then the third thing would be the power bat. Probably just a left-handed power bat. Really you're not gonna get Eugenio Suarez. I'll say it right now. I think, unfortunately, the Yankees people are right on that one. I think he does have Yankee written all over him, especially DJ LeMahieu being DFA'd. I think they have some sort of plan there. But I think for this team, it's just pitching. If you can really shore up this pitching staff, when you have Santander come back, you have Varsho come back, you do have, I don't like saying this either, but some acquisitions, I guess you could say, from your own team that are coming back off the IL around the trade deadline. So I think, obviously, it's pitching that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and a couple things I want to touch on just quickly before we do talk about this bullpen a little bit more and some of their injuries and what's in the pipeline here. Anthony Santander, no real word on what's going on there yet, and that's concerning for me. Number two, Alek Manoah's timeline from Keegan Matheson is projected. It was a hopeful August 1st. It's more looking like September, maybe late August, but it's looking like September. So what will he be able to contribute this season? Keegan Matheson said this. I'm not going to take his words. Said that it will probably, this is more of a next year thing, but you never know. Alek Manoah could come back and just be an absolute dog, but it's looking later than everybody was hoping for. But I think that's understandable coming off of Tommy John. The timetable is always tough, and it's pretty hard to get back quicker than you usually can. So just a couple updates there. But Carter, let's do you want to take a break and then talk bullpen and the series preview in number 3?
No, I think we dive into the bullpen now. Knowing us, if we leave it to 3, somehow we'll take it even longer. But a few injuries, obviously, in this Toronto Blue Jays bullpen rotation. It's kind of the same thing that we've seen, unfortunately, at a different time this year. Yimi Garcia on the IL, Nick Sandlin going to the IL. A little bit of a scarier thing there. Elbow thing's never good for pitchers. Ryan Burr back on the IL. That's the same thing. Right shoulder injury. You have Paxton Schultz on the IL. So you got a couple of guys that are starting to rack up these IL spots. And when you look, again, this is why we're looking at the trade deadline here, looking for a higher leverage arm. Because again, there is a lot of injuries here, but when you're looking at this bullpen right now, you know, Jeff Hoffman, you got Yariel Rodriguez, Brendan Little, Brayden Fisher, all 4 of those guys you're pretty happy with up to this point. Chad Green, number 5 guy. Let me know if I'm missing anyone here. Robinson Pena. I don't know how excited I am to see him being on this Toronto Blue Jays team. It is probably a guy that you see come back to the major league team. And then Justin Brule. I only have 7 there. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but maybe I'm not. And if they are not missing somebody, that means with an IL transaction, they are going to have to pull somebody off the 40-man. So I just want to confirm if I'm right or not, Brayden. It looks like you got something to say. So Did I get that one right?
No, yeah, you got it. And that's the scary part is me and you have went down before this episode, we went down sort of who's injured, who's available. And it's pretty terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. Like to find
it feels weird to say that you don't have another guy on the 40-man roster. That's like, oh, for sure. Like this is the guy that's probably going to come up. Like I think once we talked about it off camera, we probably had a pretty good candidate. But yeah, the depth of this bullpen being tested pretty quickly. And like I said on a previous episode, whenever this was, I probably said everything you could possibly say regarding the Toronto Blue Jays at this point. But thank God for Brayden Fisher. Thank God for Yariel Rodriguez. Thank God for Brendan Little. So those are your three guys. I just went over your top four guys in the bullpen. Other than Jeff Hoffman, that's your bullpen. It's the guys that you weren't relying on last year, at least for high leverage scenarios. So credit to those guys for stepping up in a massive moment. This bullpen isn't like the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen has been. Who knows where this team would be at right now?
No, and you know what? I know I was always a little bit higher on Yariel Rodriguez, but even the higher that I was, I did not expect him to be this good. I don't think you hope, but I don't think you expect it. Brendan Little, yeah, more than hat tips to that guy. He's a stud. And Brayden Fisher's been surprisingly good. He is that diamond in the rough guy, right? That you just take a couple shots on. He is that guy. So congrats to him. And yeah, this bullpen will get healthy. You will get Jimmy Garcia back. You will get Nick Sandlin back at some point. Hopefully it's not a season ender for Ryan Burr, but you never know.
It's probably be extended time, just based off his reaction there.
It didn't look good. And we won't, sugarcoat that at all. Yeah. But Carter, in saying that, I think we can talk about some of the options here. And I think
there you go.
It's pretty much Dylan Tate.
See, I got two. So I got Dylan Tate as one, kind of a big wild card. I guess I got three. Big wild card is Tommy Nance. Don't think Tommy Nance is necessarily an option here, but he hasn't been bad in AAA. And then another guy, if you're looking for more of that diamond in the rough, maybe a little bit more of a longer-term option. Ryan Jennings has looked pretty good in AAA up to this point. A guy that kind of has been flirting with being called up for at least this season and parts of last year as well. This year, a 4-1 record. Don't really care about that. But a 3 ERA over 39 innings, 52 strikeouts, a 1.62 whip. So the whip is slightly high. But for a bullpen is it Ryan Jennings or Dylan Tate? We kind of know what Dylan Tate has already.
Yeah.
I don't mind the mystery and seeing what Ryan Jennings has in him, even if it is only for a short amount of time.
Yeah, sure. I can get on board with that. Tommy Nance to me, I'm okay with going with one of the other two.
He's your 13th bullpen arm?
So yeah,
I think we're all kind of okay with that.
This is going to be a situation where these guys probably come in a blowout or getting blown out or whatever it may be. But hopefully you don't have to rely on them. But there is cases where you have to go to these guys because maybe they might be your only option on a day where your bullpen is pretty beaten up. So again, we'll wait and see what the moves are and what's made. Because it's not the biggest deal because you have 7 guys you're pretty confident in right now. And so you're pretty thrilled with that.
Well, and you got the All-Star break coming up. But
exactly.
Sorry to interrupt, but I got one more thing to throw in.
Go for it.
Lazaro Estrada is a guy I didn't include, but you don't need a long man out of the bullpen when you got Chris Bassitt in the bullpen. So, that's why I didn't include him here.
Come on. Yeah, that's ridiculous. But all right, I'll give you that one. Sure. And you know what? He was, again, all these guys, I'm like, take a shot on somebody. That's all it is at this point. You're taking your
Chris
shot.
Chris Bassitt all along. He was always there, right in front of your face.
Oh, God. So, you know what? Some days we do this podcast too much. This guy's a little too much some days. I don't know. Anyways, we're going to do a series preview when we come back. Stick around. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You guys know I love Game Time. We went out to the concert. It was an absolute blast yesterday. Shout out to that. And that was all thanks to Game Time because we got the tickets. We got lower prices last minute. And it really is unbelievable the deals you can get, especially if you wait. The view from your seat. That's one of my big things. I like to know where I'm sitting. I don't want to be guessing on the little dots on whatever app you're using. I want to be able to see what the view is. That's why Game Time is so great. With the money you save on tickets, you could splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes all of that possible. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, dude. Series preview here because we decided to take every episode. It doesn't matter what's going on. Me and you are gonna yap about something. So here we are, probably gonna be at the 40-minute mark again. Even though we're like, people are gonna have to split this podcast into 2 episodes: the way to work and the way back to work. Well, yeah, here we go again. We've done it once more. I just wanted to get into the pitcher probables here. Friday, Max Scherzer versus Luis Severino, which actually should be a very interesting game. Saturday be Kevin Gausman versus Jacob Lopez, and Sunday Jose Berrios versus Jeffrey Springs. That's right from Ben Nicholson Smith, BNS. Yeah, I take whatever that guy says with gold because he is one of the better ones out there. That's for sure. So shout out him.
Yeah, the Blue Jays have completely done it. Shout out to Ben, Ben, obviously, for an article that I want to go into for future episodes. But the Blue Jays have done it. They've gotten Luis Severino at home. Believe it or not, the guy that just hates Sacramento more than anyone I have ever seen. Just going over some of the home and road splits. ERA on the road, 3.04. Very respectable. At home, that's a 7.04. Not exactly ideal. Earned runs at home, just for reference, 61 innings at home, 47 innings on the road. 48 earned runs at home, 16 on the road. A home opponent average of 298 and away of 219, and then a home whip of 1.6 and away of 1.12. So this guy absolutely hates Sacramento. Don't exactly expect him to be there for too much longer. Probably will get traded at the trade deadline. Maybe the Toronto Blue Jays. Honestly, hopefully not. Don't really want him in Blue Jay Blue, but some luck coming to the Toronto Blue Jays way once again with some starting rotation stuff. The rest of them don't care. I think the Toronto Blue Jays have the advantage probably in every matchup. I think if this is a road series, I'm taking Severino over Scherzer. But hey, luck falls in the Toronto Blue Jays' favor once again.
Yeah, and I don't really know what to say about this one. Like, I think it's going to be a Blue Jays 2-1. With how the chips are going to fall. And yeah, we got to be that would be 7-2 on this road trip, right? Or on the road trip, Jesus, on the last 9 games before the break that we sort of predicted here. So I'm good with 7-2. I'm more than thrilled with 7-2. I was hoping for 6-3 originally, but then the Blue Jays went on an absolute tear. So I think honestly, if they're going to lose one, I would assume it's going to be game 1, and Sevy just has a good game at home for once in a blue moon, and that's what's going to happen. But I don't know. I could say 3-0 here, but I don't want to jinx anything either.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with 2 out of 3 here against the Athletics. Baseball happens. There might be something weird that you can't anticipate, and you got to just chalk it up to the baseball gods, and I'll be completely okay with that. One thing I've been trying not to do with this recent Toronto Blue Jays win streak is not get too crazy, especially with the trade deadline coming up. Not thinking that the Blue Jays have a chance at every single player ever. Like, yeah, you kind of brought up Shohei Ohtani's coming to the Blue Jays, like Dylan Cease. Like, we'll take Tatis while we're over there as well. Like, I'm not trying to get too crazy with that. And another thing is, after the trade deadline, there's some people that do a podcast. It's not us, just so you guys know. But you have the Giants, you have the Yankees, and you have the Tigers for 10 games after the All-Star break. And people were talking 7-3, 6-4. Like, I'd be like okay with 6-4. I'd be over the moon with 6-4 against those teams. So again, trying to stay grounded here. Completely fine with 2 out of 3. I mean, a sweep. Just, sign me up for that. Let's start another win streak. Let's get to 11 this time. Just run it back. But, yeah, try to stay grounded still. This is baseball. A lot of things can happen. You got to love the win streaks when they do happen. You don't usually get that as Toronto Blue Jays fans. But we got to not completely return down to the meeting because this team is still playing good baseball. And I got one more quote to end the episode off. I'll throw it back over to you just for kind of your final thoughts. But, yeah, just continue on the train chugging.
Yeah, dude. You to going against some of the best teams in the league, I'm okay with 500 against those teams. I think you're in a good position where you can afford to go 500 against teams like that. You don't have to push and try to, kill yourselves to get to sort of overplay your hand, I guess. You don't have to do that. Or we can't expect them to be able to do that because they have been on such a good streak. There are peaks and there are valleys in a baseball season. So as long as they go 500 against those teams, Carter, yeah, I'm more than thrilled because they have put themselves in a position to succeed with this winning streak.
Yeah, you can ride out 500 through the tough stretches, and you're going to be more than fine if you lose a series. Ideally, you beat the Yankees in that instance. If you lose a series to the Giants there, if you can get out of there tied 2-2 with the Tigers. Like, I'm completely fine with that. Even if you do lose 3 out of 4 to the Tigers are one of the best teams in the American League, in the MLB. So you got to give them props when they do have it. But this is how I'm going to end the episode. I'll throw it back over to you for your final thoughts heading into the weekend. But it's a quote from Max Scherzer just about how the Toronto Blue Jays have been and just the narratives that have been around that team, especially with the win streak. So he says, I know right now we all want to talk about the streaks, and the streak that we're on is great. So this was just before that White Sox game, obviously. But he says, and don't get me wrong, we're enjoying the absolute living daylights out of it. But this is less about the streak and more about that we're playing good baseball. We've been playing very good baseball for the past 6 weeks. So to me, when you want to talk about the streak, it's like, no. We're playing good baseball, and I'd rather talk about that. That's exactly the perfect way that I would sum up the end of this episode, is that who cares about the win streak? The Toronto Blue Jays have been playing very good baseball for a very long time, and I expect that to continue. To continue.
It's the consistency. There you go. It's the consistency that we've been looking for, right? That's what it is. And that's the biggest takeaway. It's not, the Blue Jays missed out by 1 game on their all-time winning streak. No, it's about this team is doing their jobs consistently and getting the job done. And as fans, if again, we look back at last year, that's all we could have asked of this team, and they have been over the moon. So be happy, be excited, be pumped up, but just don't go insane thinking that they're the best team in the league. They need to do their jobs, and they're going to have to work. They're going to have to be gritty. They're going to have to grind for these victories right up until the playoff time. So again, thank you guys all for watching. Have a fantastic weekend. Get ready for the big board coming from the Locked On Blue Jays, boys. We'll be back next week. We got more than enough to talk about with all these trade speculations. We didn't even get into some stuff we should have today, but of course, in classic us fashion, we go long. So have a great weekend, everybody.